Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Day or Night in the Desert podcast. We have a lot of great things to get into. This is episode 3 of this podcast, and today we have a lot of stuff to get into, including Jazz, Mammoth, University of Utah basketball, BYU basketball, and March Madness, and even some more big stories in the world of sports that we will get into. So I'm really excited about today's episode. I do regret to say that Zach will not be joining me today on this podcast. He just had a few conflicts come up, and so we will see him next on episode 4 and beyond. But today it'll just be me, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But we're certainly excited to have Zach on our future episodes. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to get into our content for today. And we're going to start off by talking about Utah Utes basketball. They ended their regular season with a 101-75 loss to Baylor. Don McHenry led all scorers for the Utes with 20 points, but ultimately Baylor comes out of this with a big time win over the Utes, who have dropped to 10-21 and 2-16 in Big 12 play. The Baylor win also handed Baylor coach Scott Drew his 500th win and capped what was a very disappointing regular season for the Utah Utes. However, the Utes will still be able to have an opportunity to play in the Big 12 tournament, where they will face 9-9 opponent Cincinnati Bearcats in round 1. And obviously we're excited to tune into that, but clearly not the season that the Utes would have wanted this year. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously they play in a very tough conference. The Big 12 has been very tough in recent years. They've always been a really blue blood conference. We've seen teams like Kansas perform well, Arizona, Houston. Some of those top teams in the Big 12 have really done a nice job coming out and showing out every single night. And the Utes just haven't really adjusted yet to the tempo of the Big 12 conference. They don't really have the depth. They have a first-year head coach in Alex Jensen, who I am optimistic about going forward, but certainly this was not the year that they would have hoped for in terms of what their expectations were. But obviously adjusting to a new conference, a new head coach, a lot of young players. It's been obviously a tough season. Obviously, we loved what Don McHenry has done. We loved what Terrence Brown has done throughout this season in terms of their contributions, both averaging close to 20 points per game. But unfortunately, it's just not enough production on their end to be able to lead anywhere in terms of getting into the NCAA tournament or other big tournaments, and we haven't seen a lot of meaningful games from the Utah Utes in these last couple of years. So that's been a little bit unfortunate for our team. And on the other hand, BYU basketball has ended their regular season with a massive comeback win over 10th-ranked Texas Tech in Provo on Saturday. Robert Wright led all scorers with 27 points, and AJ DeBonsa added 21 of his own in BYU's 82-76 comeback win. BYU will now face Kansas State in round 1 of the Big 12 basketball tournament, where they will obviously be slightly favored over a team that is just 12-19 and 15th in the Big 12. So clearly not the season Kansas State wanted. And obviously BYU is going to be a favorite going into that game with potential top 5 pick AJ DeBonsa leading the way. And we've seen a lot of great things from AJ DeBonsa. He's obviously come to perform every single night, every single game. And another 21-point game in a big-time win for them. So obviously that's good reason for optimism for his draft stock. And we've obviously seen a lot of great things from him. But in some ways, BYU, I think, has disappointed in terms of maybe what we've expected. They've lost a couple of big games this season, particularly to teams like Central Florida, West Virginia. You know, just teams that you wouldn't expect them to lose to, but obviously still a lot of reason for optimism in that program, considering what they've been able to accomplish these last couple of years. Obviously, they were in the Sweet 16 last year. I do expect them to make the NCAA tournament, though I think they will need a good showing in the Big 12 tournament in order to make that happen at just 21-10. Obviously, they're not ranked in the top 25. They've lost a few key games, and they've lost a few key players, such as Richie Saunders with the torn ACL. So it'll certainly be interesting to see how BYU comes out and performs in the Big 12 tournament when they are vulnerable a little bit. But I still have a lot of optimism regarding what they've been able to do this year. Obviously, the future of the program is great with Coach Kevin Young and these guys. And they've gotten some great players and some good staff around them. So I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about that. But again, the Big 12 is a very, very difficult conference. And it's going to be tough to come out of that conference with a conference championship. Obviously, Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, and Kansas, I think, are still the favorites to win. I really have liked the way Arizona's played. They're 28-2 overall, 15-2 in Big 12 play. Just a stellar season. They have the Conference Player of the Year. They have a multitude of role guys in depth that they've used to be a really great team. And obviously, that has to be pivotal going into the Big 12 tournament and into the NCAA tournament for Arizona. Houston as well has had some great moments, obviously beating BYU in a couple of big games. And in addition, beating a lot of other teams in their conference, as they have a 13-4 record in conference play. And so we're excited to see those teams obviously going into the NCAA tournament and beyond. And it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens going into March Madness. Duke right now is the number one overall team in the country. They are 27-2. They obviously have the Boozer twins, great players. Arizona's at number 2. Obviously, as I said, Jaden Bradley was the Big 12 Player of the Year at Arizona, and they come in with a record of 27-2 as well. Michigan, UConn, Florida, other teams to really look out for here. But I think one of the biggest stories we have to cover on this topic of March Madness is the story of Miami, Ohio. Obviously, they're 31-0. They've had a stellar year, but a lot of close games that they've barely come away with, and it's been tough to hear all the rhetoric about them not deserving to be in the NCAA tournament or questions about their status in college basketball. Obviously, I feel like the whole point of basketball is to go out there and win, like with any sport. I think, what's the point of going out there and playing a game if you're not going to try to win? And so I feel like it's very disappointing that we have commentators, particularly guys like Jay Williams on ESPN, saying that they don't deserve to be in the tournament or that they should be short-sighted in some way or what have you. I found that to be very disappointing to see that, and I obviously am rooting for them. I hope that they do well, that they win their conference tournament in the MAC, and we have an undefeated story going into the NCAA tournament. And other big news, we have the NBA that's still going on. They are getting closer to concluding their regular season, and since we last aired, the Utah Jazz have played 2 games. They have gone 1-1 since our last episode, with both games being on the road. Their first game was a very close 106-102 loss to the 34-28 sixth place Philadelphia 76ers. Keontae George led all scorers in that game with 30 points, while Ace Bailey had 12, and Isaiah Collier added 18 points. And obviously, it's very optimistic to see the Jazz, despite the loss, coming out and having a good performance. They had 4 players in double figures, including Keontae, who obviously had a massive game with 30 points. And it's optimistic to see that. And then this new player, Blake Hinson, he's been a big bright spot for the Jazz, averaging 9 points and almost 3 rebounds per game. He's only played in a handful of games. Didn't make his first start till February 28th against the Pelicans, where he dropped 8 points on 3 of 6 shooting. And he's been a journeyman in the league for a while. Came out of Pittsburgh, has played for 3 G League teams, but is clearly making himself at home here in Utah. Had another 10 points in their next game over the Wizards, which was a rout. Jazz winning 122-112. That game was on Thursday, and Ace Bailey, man, the rookie, comes out, has 32 points and hits 7 3-pointers. Very impressive performance. Was 12 of 19 from the field, 7 of 11 from 3. Absolutely dazzling performance from the rookie, and that gives me a lot of hope going forward that the Jazz can be efficient, that they can play well, and that they can score with any team out there in the league. We've obviously seen what Keontae and Lowry can do when they're healthy. And obviously we don't know exactly what trades are going to happen in the offseason. I suppose the Jazz will have to move some pieces that sadly I think will include Lowry Markkanen or Keontae George. But obviously if we could get them back and get some good pieces around them or a high draft pick, I certainly am optimistic about the future of the Jazz. And they had 6 players in double figures in that game against the Wizards. And obviously the Wizards haven't been a great team this year, so obviously not a lot to hope for there. But the Jazz, they came out and they did what they had to do. 1 by 10, 6 players in double figures. Collier also had 27 points. Filipowski, 20 points and 14 rebounds. And so the Jazz just overall played a great game. 51% shooting from the field, 43% from 3. They are still 19-44, which again, not a great record. 14th in the Western Conference, but again, a big win over the Wizards. Obviously happy to see Ace Bailey playing that well. That gives me a lot of hope for the future. Blake Hinson has been a surprise newcomer for this team, and I think he's played very, very well the last few games. And I'm excited to see what he brings to us in the next, few games and beyond. Anyways, on to a bit more of a winning team right now. We have the Utah Mammoth, who continue to shine. They had a 3-0 shutout on the road against the Philadelphia Flyers. Backup goalie Vitek Vanek recorded his first shutout this season and had an amazing 16 saves in his 100th career NHL victory. Big congrats to him on that. 100 career wins in the NHL, and he does it in a 16-save shutout. Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller and Michael Carcone all scored. While Schmaltz added an assist, Dylan Gunther also added 2 assists. The Mammoth have now won back-to-back games on the road after a 3-2 close victory over the Capitals on Tuesday. They also wound up getting a major trade from the Calgary Flames, where they received defenseman Mackenzie Weegar, who we traded for Oli Mata, Jonathan Castagna, and 3 second-round picks. We traded those 3 players to Calgary for defenseman Mackenzie Weegar. And I think that's going to be a great trade for us. A good defenseman from Calgary. And we didn't have to trade any starters to really get him. No first-round picks and no real stars for the Mammoth. Obviously, Oli Mata won the bronze medal with Team Finland, but he hasn't really been playing too awfully much with us in recent years. And obviously, that's a great trade, I think, for our team. We also need a lot of defensemen on the back end, which is Mikhail Sergachev, Liam O'Brien, and others. He'll be a great addition to that lineup for us. The Mammoth also got a 5-4 overtime win over the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Logan Cooley finally making his big return. Obviously, he'd been playing for a few games. We hadn't seen amazing production from him in the first couple starts he had coming back from injury, but he had 2 massive goals against the Blue Jackets, including the game winner in overtime. They were up 4-2 in the third period. Columbus obviously with a rally, but then Logan Cooley in overtime, ice in his veins, clutch as can be, absolutely took over that game for us. So the Mammoths still in great position. They're up 4 points ahead of the Kraken and 5 points ahead of the San Jose Sharks. So still in great position for that wild card run. Obviously, I'd be super excited to see playoff hockey in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we're going to keep an eye on that going forward because I really like what the Mammoth are doing. They're young pieces. We got guys under contract for years. We're making elite trades. Just love to see what we're doing with the Mammoth, and it's going to be exciting, I think, for a lot of people to have potentially a contending team in Utah going forward. Even if this isn't the year we contend for a Stanley Cup, we have a great team. I think we could at least come out of the first or second rounds of the playoffs and still have a team that is formidable, even if we don't necessarily get to a Stanley Cup level. But I'm super excited about the Mammoth going forward. Logan Cooley's back. A lot of exciting things going on. Gunther's playing well. Nice to see Clayton Keller back from Italy playing great. And it's just a really exciting time to be a hockey fan and particularly a Mammoth fan. So congratulations to them. I hope their success continues. I'm really excited to see what happens going forward with that. I'm going to get back in to the NBA for a second because there's a couple of big stories that we need to cover with the NBA. And the first being Jason Tatum's return from a torn Achilles after nearly 300 days. Tatum comes back against the Mavericks in a 120-100 win in Boston. Tatum had 15 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists in 27 minutes in his first game back from a torn Achilles after 298 days, which obviously, that seems like a long time, but, Kevin Durant was out for 18 months with a torn Achilles. Jason Tatum to be back by the middle of March after tearing his Achilles in the Eastern Conference Finals Eastern Conference Finals. It's been downright impressive to watch on so many different levels. And they've done so many good things, and they're still second in the East at 42-21, just 4 games behind the Detroit Pistons. And so super excited to see what they do going forward. I obviously think Jason Tatum is kind of a piece that maybe puts them over the hump in terms of the Eastern Conference. I think Boston is a real title contender. We've seen Jaylen Brown miss games this year, and so many other guys have been gone from that championship team. Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and other guys. They've gone to other teams, and the Celtics have still absolutely thrived with guys like Peyton Pritchard and Derek White and Jaylen Brown, and now Jason Tatum coming back. Super exciting to see what this team's doing. The Celtics obviously a real title contender now that they have Jason Tatum back and that they can go out there at full strength and be able to be there for the playoffs. So super excited for Jason, super excited for them. And in his second game back, Tatum kept it up. Had another 20 points in his second game back. Jaylen Brown had 23 and 9 rebounds and 8 assists in a 109-98 win over the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland. So the Celtics 2-0 in Jason Tatum's return. He did better last night, I think, than he did in the prior game against the Mavericks. And obviously it's just a good time to be a Boston Celtics fan. And I'm not really a Boston Celtics fan, but super excited for Jason Tatum and just happy he's healthy and able to do what he loves to do and help his team, win games and hopefully win a championship. And that's obviously got to be amazing for him, amazing for his family, his friends, the team in general. And just overall, when the Celtics are doing good, it's good for the league. And so certainly great news on that front. Nothing but love for Jason Tatum. Congrats. And hopefully we'll continue to see you prosper and thrive in the NBA and continue to play well and lead this team to where they need to be. In other sad NBA news before I wrap up and get on out of here, Suns forward Dillon Brooks was arrested in Scottsdale on a DUI. According to some reports, he did not have alcohol in his system at the time, but it looked like his car smelled like marijuana. And obviously, regardless of what the case is, I haven't read up on all the details on this. I apologize to my audience back home, but it's obviously a stupid situation for him to find himself in. And I know a lot of people out there are going to be laughing and trolling. Oh, it's Dillon Brooks. Oh, he's a hater. He was trashing LeBron and Draymond and all these NBA championship players. But certainly I'm not a person who wishes bad things upon people. I certainly hope people can go out there and do the job that they love to do. And, he made the NBA. He's been having a great year this year with the Phoenix Suns. A career year in my estimation. He was averaging 18 points per game. So I certainly find it incredibly silly that he finds himself in this situation. And certainly I hope he learns from this. I hope that he does better going forward. Again, a guy who's having a career year, averaging over 18 points per game. Obviously sad to find himself in this situation with the law. And so no matter what you think of him, I think, we should be disappointed in him, but also have compassion and hope that he gets the help that he needs and hope that he makes better choices going forward so he can have his career and he can continue to produce at the level that he is accustomed to producing at. And so obviously, guys, with that being said, we want to thank you for tuning into episode 3. It's been really exciting to start this podcast off. I'm sorry that Zach was unable to be here, but certainly it's been fun, and we hope to see you in the next episode. And thank you guys so much, and have a great night.